I don't know why, but I'm the first Asian American to win WNBA championship and so on and so on. I think it's important that I'm not just the first, I make sure I'm not the last. And I started to realize too, like, there's a reason why I am the first. As athletes, you're also standing for something. And to me, that's going to be really important as we talk about community and creating relationships and standing up for who you are.
Welcome to API Futures, a podcast by Ascend where we empower global leaders of tomorrow. Here's our guest host for this episode.
It's so great to be here, and I'm honored to be up here with you, Natalie, and Jess, during what's actually a really significant time in Bay Area sports history, right? We're 2 weeks away from the Valkyries' first WNBA draft, and we're less than 7 weeks away from tip-off.
From your way, we gotta go. Actually, we're gonna have to leave.
From the first ever game, but the excitement around the Bay Area, as you know well, is palpable. In my own house, I think the only person more excited about the Valkyries than my 11-year-old daughter is my 13-year-old son, who on Wednesday of this week ran off to school wearing his team hoodie like he always does. And in our hometown of Oakland, we are so happy that the Valkyries have chosen the town as your headquarters, and we're so excited about finding more and more ways to figure out how to work together to uplift and support this next generation, because basketball is obviously more than just what happens on the court. It's about leadership, community, lasting impact. I'm very fortunate to have a front row seat to witness, every day the kind of impact that basketball can have, because Stefan, along with his wife Ayesha, they're the founders of our foundation, Eat, Learn, Play, and the work that they do and the love that they give the community is changing lives. But both of you are shaping the future of women's basketball in so many ways, not just the way that the game is played, but how it connects with people. Natalie, would love to ask you about your journey, right? From breaking barriers as an NBA assistant to leading the Valkyries. It's inspiring, and can you tell us about your journey and what key moments or decisions have shaped your leadership approach throughout professional basketball?
Yeah, thank you for that intro, and thank you guys for being here and being present. So not to turn it quickly to a dark moment, but please laugh. No. So when I thought about, because I saw that you're going to ask about key moments, changing moments of your life, and I thought hard. And one of the key moments, unfortunately, it's a dark moment, is time where I've suffered, a lot of pain. It actually was a huge momentum change for me. My dad, who was my best friend, he was my rock. He was my first phone call. He was my everything. He passed away 4 years ago, almost to exact. And there was no, guidance. There was no notebook of how do you heal from that. It was just a very, very painful moment. And for those of you who have lost a parent, or for those of you who have lost a family member, I actually had to witness him passing right in front of my eyes. I was his caretaker. I was that person, and I was like, wow, this is something I wasn't ready for. And I just remember, transparently, I wanted to go too. I was like, wherever my dad goes, I wanted to go too. And I told my family that, and they're just like, no, don't go. And I was just like, well, I want to be with my dad. It was something that, I was with him all the time. So, moments passed, days passed. I still cry, but once I got through that and I started to heal and I started to go through the grieving, I realized if I could survive my dad's death, I could survive anything. And I could do anything. And unfortunately, on the flip, going through something so painful, it actually provided so much confidence and a change in me that I never knew like I could do. And so, sorry I went dark there, but yeah, sometimes like real painful, suffering moments can build like a resilience in you that I never knew I could be. So taking on this job, I was like, I could do this. I could do this, no problem. Like, again, because I survived one of the most painful moments in my life. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that vulnerability, that confidence, now is surely going to be an unbelievable asset to the franchise, to the team. I would love to transition and Jess, bring you into the conversation about transforming the Valkyries from concept to reality. It had to be very difficult. Would love for you to share some of the biggest hurdles you encountered in establishing the brand and how you overcame those.
Yeah, I think the hurdles actually come just from the continued market perception that you're overcoming when it comes to women's sports. So previous to the Valkyries, I had a chance to build Angel City Football Club. So the historic football club beside Natalie Portman, Julie Ehrman, and Karen Ortman down in Los Angeles that transformed women's sports. And really what was transformative there was unlocking the mindset of not, the perception of women's sports that was so often like, how do we break even? And like, maybe we'll sell 4,000 tickets. It was, how do we build the most powerful women's sports organization in the world? How do we sell out venues? How do we build a corporate portfolio? How do we give back? How do we make sure that we're building something that actually is something that our players deserve? And I think when you step back and you think of what the goal is, a lot of society has said, we want the players to make more money. That's a great statement. That's a true statement. But the way to get to more money is to actually build business around the system, right? You can't give more money without more money in the system. So to actually make that actionable, you have to build great business around it. And so we had success there, but really what we did at Angel City was unlock a playbook that I knew was possible to grow in a lot of different ways. And with Golden State, one of the personal secrets about Golden State is the whole time I was helping build Angel City, I actually lived in the Bay Area. So this is home for me, has been for about the last 20 years. I have 2 young girls here. I live in the East Bay. This is where, this is my community, and this region and this ownership group. When I heard that they were looking at the WNBA rights and I grew up playing basketball, it to me just felt like an incredible, powerful moment, to be able to take the learnings there and to think through what we could do in the Bay Area. The world often looks to the Bay, right, to see what comes next, whether that's innovation or how we treat people. And I think that that's really interesting to think about merging what's happening in women's sports right now in the communities we represent, but also just the power of that mindset and what we're going to achieve. So some of the hurdles are just simply making sure that people aren't making the assumptions, that we are going to be small. We have over 10,000 season ticket holders. We had over 23,000 seat deposit holders. Our revenues will rival and beat many men's teams, including NBA teams that have double the number of games that we have. That's not by accident. And I think the point of this panel is, the duality of it. I think for so long, women's sports has been thought of as charitable. We have to help. We have to do this. You have to build business that invite other people in to strategically be involved into what you're building. And that eventually makes the outcomes that you want from a community's perspective as well. But you can also be both, right? I think what we've also unlocked is that it's a unique product. It's not the same audience as an NBA fan. We are the same ownership group. We will play in Chase Center just like the Warriors do, the same sport. And we have less than 5% of a mirrored season ticket holder base. Our product is a mix of sport and purpose and culture, and we are building that as such, and we are seeing that unlocked, which is a greater business opportunity. And with that, you're going to see us also make sure that we are paying testament to those pathways, because it is also our responsibility to make sure that while we're building in a powerful manner, we're also giving back to the community that's standing us up at the same time.
It's unbelievable, the records that you're breaking before you even play a first game. And you spoke to it a little bit, but women's sports are seeing unprecedented growth. Deloitte, who's a sponsor here, just released what I thought was a fascinating report, but talked about global revenues in women elite sports being above $2.3 billion this year. With that momentum for women's sports and for the Valkyries specifically, what's top of mind for you as you build the franchise into a globally recognized brand?
Yeah, we have to be genuine, I think, you can be great at business and all the things I just said were great, but you can't do that without listening, right? This is a product that hasn't been built before. There is no roadmap. There's actually not, when you go into business, you're like, okay, let's go look at all the case studies. Let's really understand what the benchmarks are for pricing. Let's understand the risks associated. That doesn't exist in the manner that we are looking to build what we are looking to. So we're building based on values. We're building a lot based on gut feeling. We're building based on, who we are. The simple decisions that aren't that simple and are a big impact, like our brand, actually, like to some people, were a big risk, right? So often when you see a women's and men's team associated together, you see shared branding because people think that, that's going to be helpful to the women's team. For instance, the Warriors are one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Take sport out of the equation, and they've earned every right of that, right? They are an unbelievable legacy brand and will be for all time, especially thanks to our friend, Mr. Curry, as my kids call him. Every game they're like, where is he? Where's number 30? But if we were blue and gold, would you have ever been able to differentiate who we were, right? And so we had to build our own legacy. We had to build a color that we could lean into to where when you even saw that color, you understood who we were, right? So those simple decisions come from listening to our community, but also understanding that to build something just as powerful as the Warriors, we have to lean into the risk that is involved there as well. So I think when we're thinking of the unlock, yes, there's the business decisions, but also there is putting really talented, thoughtful people in the room and making sure that we're thinking of everybody that is powering, this from an audience standpoint, and then making decisions and running with it.
Well, I mean, you're seeing the Valkyries team colors. What is the official color? It's not, is it?
Violet.
Violet.
Yeah, Valkyrie violet.
Purple.
Yeah, I was going to say purple. I'm glad I said violet. But you see that violet, you're already seeing it, but it's going to explode as the team, comes alive and has success. And Natalie, you're obviously focused on wins and losses, but not just that. You're helping to shape the culture of a team that this entire Bay Area is going to embrace. So how do you see the Valkyries, fostering a deeper connection beyond basketball to build both a strong team, but also, helping to build an engaged community too?
I love that question because he knows I am focused on the wins and the losses. So I appreciate you doing your homework on that. But no, we just recently got to experience a community. We went to a mural painting in the community, and it was great. And I was, as I was painting, painting is therapy. I don't know who paints here, but it's therapy to me. And I asked a fan next to me because he was all excited, like, God, I can't wait for the Valkyries. And I'm just like, well, you're from the Bay. I go, can you tell me what it's like being from, the Bay, being from Oakland? And right away, he just says, I experience a lot of struggle. Without hesitation, experience a lot of struggle, right? And I'm just like, wow, like I take on a lot of like the energy that sometimes people give me, and so I'm like, oh gosh. But he's like, but then he changes his face and he goes, so that's why I'm so excited about the Valkyries. He's like, I can't wait to go to a game. And when right there at that moment, besides the wins and the losses, I realized like we actually have the responsibility of giving people just a lot of joy. Like when you guys come to a WNBA game, you come to a Valkyries game for a good 2 to 3 hours, you guys get to just have fun. Experience the arena, experience the crowd. You could have fun with your friends. You could meet new friends. And that's what I realized it was beyond the wins and the losses. Is like, wow, we're really building a community, but also just giving people a joy that they, maybe for a couple hours, they don't have to think about what's going on in their life. And that to me is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. I think there's also like two tactical ways to think about like giving back too, right? It's the fact that we exist. And by the way, like that our head coach is out there building connections, asking questions, being curious about our community, like that matters. So thank you for being who you are and representing our brand that way. But being powerful in that perception is a big deal, right? That be it not only for young girls, by the way, but for young boys is a big deal. Our audience is actually 50% men and women. Like I think that's something that most people are surprised about. But that idolization from young boys to our athletes is going to be really, really important. And then of course for the young girls in the game and making sure that they can see that pathway for themselves is also going to be really important. But we also can't steer away from the fact that when we build this business and have our partners by our side, and I know you all do this too, we're going to be able to fund real systemic change. We're going to be able to paint the murals. We're going to be able to beautify things. We're going to be able to create those pathways to sport. We can talk about doing those things and the importance of it, and the fact that we know that 92% of female leaders in our world have access to sport at some point in their childhood, or we can actually go do that work and make sure that we're creating more pathways to create that too. So, I mean, I think it's like packaging all that together and knowing that we have the talent and want from everyone in our organization, from basketball to business, it's a privilege to be a part of.
So how do you do that, right? How do you maximize this platform to serve this next generation as well as you can?
For us, it's intentional. So we have a dedicated community team, but we also, with every corporate partner that we bring on, we have that conversation. It's the understanding of, that we're a place where mission and capital can coexist, right? Where, yes, you're going to get your marketing results, but also when people see the Valkyries and JP Morgan Chase or Kaiser Permanente, who's doing a mural with us, we're thinking through well, what does that mean? When somebody sees our brands together, what does that mean? It's already a statement in itself to see our brands, but how are we making that systemic change? How do we want to align that? And we put dedicated funds from each of those partnerships to actually get to work. So we can work with organizations like yours, and make sure that when we can reflect back, when you look at the long-term agreements and you look back at the 5 year, we usually sit down, right? And you're like, here's the impressions, here's, what worked. And then we get to say what the actual results were for a community standpoint, that makes a big difference. And we're very fortunate, I'd be remiss not to say, that we work for an incredible ownership group. Joe Lacob, Peter Guber, and the entire team, we have a foundation, that will embody the Valkyries and continue to do great work. They are tremendous, and the dedication that they have to our community that allows us to take the vision that we have outside of even the corporate dollars, but through personal fundraising and make a difference, will be a key contributor to making sure that our youth and our communities feel the love of what we're building too.
I can say firsthand, right, that I've seen the way that you've been showing up already. Like last weekend, we're the charitable partner and like a small owner of the Oakland Marathon, which we're working to turn into a world-class event and a major fundraiser for Oakland students. But, they're the Valkyries. There's Jess and her family, cheering on 10,000 runners at the finish line and engaging with kids all day Saturday at our fun run. Like, the brand is alive, and we spent Valentine's Day together as well. And you're like, wheelbarrows full of mulch helping to beautify a school. And so it's clear that you all get it, right? But sports, how do you see sports, the role that sports plays in larger community transformation as well?
I mean, should you answer that question?
I would love to start with you, but I'm happy to chime. I'm happy to chime in with what I see and what Stefan's been able to do for sure.
I mean, I can start for sure. I mean, I talked about it a little bit when I talked about, the access to sport and what that provides for future pathways. And, that's true, right? Safe places to play, equipment to use. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to wear the number 30 jersey on the Warriors. But those skills and access to sport really provide an opportunity for our society to have better outcomes, for individuals to have better outcomes. Very candidly, I'm one of those statistics. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I grew up with a mom who had me at 17, sport was what gave me that pathway. Playing very mediocre basketball. She was trying to scout my 5-year-old yesterday. She's like, she's tall. Is she fast? I was like, it's not untrue. I was like, yes, she's fast. Stop it. But it's fine. And that opened up a lot of doors for me. I was able to travel outside of my small town, to have access to understand how other families lived, outside of my own, to have coaches and guidance counselors tell me that I had a different pathway, to understand how to fill out FAFSA paperwork to get into college, right? So I truly understand the core of sport at such a level that I think is able to now, having the opportunity to have this role, marry the two and understanding those pathways. But sport really is, something that we can shift our society through, and something that also at the top level, as we talked about, brings people together, right? I also think sport in general is always just a reflection of our society at any given moment. You want to know what's happening around the world? Tune into the Olympics, tune into sports. That's where you're going to see and feel it first.
Yeah. For me, when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about, is it possible for our youth to, as they watch a game and they're inspired by some of these athletes, some of the Valkyries, is it possible to get them to think, hey, I want to be a professional athlete. I got to train more. I got to get into the gym, or I got to go play outside. So, hey, I got to get off my iPhone. I got to get off my, Android or whatever. If I could impact the youth in that way, to where I didn't grow up with a cell phone. So I don't know what it's like to just have screen time 24/7. And if I could do that, I think that's a positive. I think that the kids nowadays are just missing out on social interaction. They read these things, these negative comments, and my nephew, he's 16, and he doesn't, I stalk his posts, but he doesn't post anything. But I think because there's fear there. Sorry, Kason, if you end up hearing about this, but that kind of hurts me. I love my nephew, and I want him to be confident in everything he does. But I think I actually had a thought about this. I don't know if you like this, Jess, but having a clinic maybe, and get these kids out more, indoor, outdoor, wherever.
I love it.
But then have a meeting with the parents and really focus on, communicating with the parents is hey, you guys have to kind of take responsibility, take these screens away, taking the phones away, and start engaging with your kids and getting them out there. Go play catch. I played hoop all the time with my dad outside, and I never understood what a screen was until later in college. So that's the impact, I think, the Valkyries, I think we could do it.
Agreed. And Chris, I half joked, but I think your perception in this conversation is an important one. Working with one of the most notable athletes ever, but also I think watching the evolution of sport in the Bay Area alone, with the Valkyries selfishly coming in, how you're seeing that change things. You're in schools consistently, you're with youth consistently. What are you seeing?
We see sports participation as being a key driver in uplifting this generation of kids in Oakland, right? The joys that kids can get and the benefits from participating in youth sports, they're very well documented. And when we were building the foundation, the Currys felt very strongly about these issues that we work on, right? And that we work in Oakland first and foremost. But food insecurity, in Oakland right now, 39% of kids live in food insecure households. And that was an issue that Ayesha cared a lot about and had worked on. They both knew education was going to be at the center of what this foundation did. And that's become a major commitment to helping ensure all Oakland students become great readers at the right times. And then our play pillar, not surprisingly, that's what Stefan was non-negotiable about. Because for him, it wasn't about creating the next NBA or WNBA star. It was his recognition that so much of his character development happened through sports. But as we've dug into the research, the data in Oakland, it's only 14% of kids are getting their daily recommended amount of exercise in Oakland. And only 9% of girls. This is when we started Eat, Learn, Play in 2019. And so we've been on a mission transforming every schoolyard in the city to be great places for kids to play. We just made a huge commitment to revitalize youth sports through making sure that middle school sports are fully funded and that every kid has the opportunity to participate in a variety of high quality and no cost youth sports offerings. Cost of play is huge in Oakland and throughout the country as well. And so it's a part of our mission and what we're doing, but it does come from Steph and his him just being smart about just how much of a difference this can make in unlocking the potential of a kid.
What I love about the work that you do and what's passionate at the Valkyries too, is that you think about the whole human being, right? We talk about access to sport. That's really, really important. But as you said, you can't play sports if you're not fed. You can't play sports if you don't feel safe. You can't play sports if you don't have those, those pieces in place, and I just really appreciate all that you lead. So thank you.
Well, it's there's something special brewing with you all. And I know Stefan and his entire family could not be any more excited for this team. And Yeah, we're fired up for you all. Natalie, I want to ask you a question going back to you spoke a little bit, about the resilience and the perseverance that you've had to face. How do you translate those personal experiences, those challenges even, into actionable leadership lessons for your team?
Yeah. So I'm going to share something pretty private, but I can share it. I don't care. So I just had my first team Zoom. So if you guys know, our players are not here yet. Half of them are overseas. They're international. So we had to have a meet and greet, right? So my sports therapist, she calls me an extremist, and she goes, Natalie, she goes, do not show them film. She goes, do not show them your offense and defensive philosophy. I'm like, why? I'm like, we got to get to this. You know what I mean? They're overseas. I'm like, some of the other teams are together. And she's like, do not show them film. I'm like, okay, what do I do? And she's like, call it happy hour. And she's like, let everyone introduce themselves. And, if you can have a drink, you can have a drink. I'm like, well. And she just said, just get to know each other. She goes, you have to get your players to understand that you care about them first before you just throw film at them. And she's like, or they're not going to listen to you. And I was like, okay. She's always right. So I'm like, okay. So I text, all the girls, 18, and I'm like, hey, happy hour this time. And so all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. Oh, I can make it. And I was like, okay. So everyone gets on. And I was thinking about, gosh, what's a great question for our girls to kind of open up to each other. Awkwardly, being on Zoom. I know during COVID we're on Zoom, but it was a little awkward. And I said, hey, everyone, my name's Natalie. Can you guys just go around and say, what do you stand for? Right? And of course, Kayla goes, well, you go first. And I was like, okay, great. Luckily, I was thinking about it, but I said, I stand for a lot of firsts. For some reason, it just happens in my career. I don't know why, but I'm the first Asian-American to win WNBA championship and so on and so on. And so I think it's important that I'm not just the first, I make sure I'm not the last. And that's big for me, is how can I open doors for the next? And I started to realize too, there's a reason why I am the first. I think it's because I can handle it. And for those of you who've ever, raise your hand, have you ever gone viral? Anyone ever gone viral here? No? No? Really? I'm sure some of you guys have gone viral. So anyways, so I was the first female to sit on a Summer League NBA bench. And so all of a sudden someone took a picture, they posted it, and then boom, my phone blew up. And my sister said, whatever you do, don't read the comments, right? She's mean. It's my meaner older sister. And I was like, so what do you do when a mean older sister tells you that? You read the comments, right? So first thing it says, what are you doing? You should get back in the kitchen. Where's your apron? It got really brutal. It was who are you hooking up with? What? I was like, what? But luckily, I learned at a young age, my dad taught me, never care about what people think and their opinions. And so, it didn't bother me. I actually canceled my social for a while. I just got rid of it because I'm just this is not going to help me. But I learned, I could deal with that. That wasn't a problem. And as I continue on and the comments will come, it doesn't bother me because the only people that matter are my family. Period. That's it. That's all that matters in terms of the comments. Everyone else can kick rocks. So that's what I learned. And that's what I wanted to share with our players. And then when you ask, what are your experiences, is I want them to understand, as athletes, you're also standing for something. So what is your why? What are you standing for? And to me, that's going to be really important as we talk about community and creating relationships and standing up for who you are.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Don't tell anybody. No, I told you guys.
I think we have just a couple minutes if we want to open it up for one or two questions of Natalie and Jess.
Hi, I'm Lily. Thank you all. And I want to say thank you, too, because of what you're doing in Oakland. My son is a middle school math teacher in Oakland Unified, and he's with these kids every day, too. So that's amazing. We heard in a session just before you about a board chair's communications with a CEO. And I'm very curious about the two of you and your communication style and how you handle, what's official, or is it just everyday, constant, talking to each other? How does that work? Because, I think everyone in this room thinks about organizations and communication all the time.
We have a lot of different layers of communication too. So we have our internal communications, which we just walk down the hall most of the time, text each other. We're soon just like we don't even have to talk, we just know. But then we have the inner Golden State organization, which is now 600 plus employees. We have that ownership group. We have the WNBA communications, which sometimes are different between sporting and business, which we have to stay connected on because a lot of times it impacts one another's line in what we're doing, or players or business in different ways that maybe is not seen. So good question. But I think, mainly it's that we really look to be as proactively communicative as possible, right? So when we have a board meeting coming up, which, I have for like the broader Golden State organization, I'm working with Natalie and Ohema to make sure that we are communicating on what's being reported as well as like what's being reported down, right? I think often what I coach my team on is I think everyone's always so worried about leveling up and being in the next room that they forget that there's so much managing up and how important that is in every organization, right? Like the leaders can't be in every single room or the organization's not going to work. So to have those really effective managers directly under, making sure that they're bubbling up the right topics to make sure that the leaders of the company, the boards of the company, the leagues, et cetera, can focus on the right things that actually impact the outcomes. And so that's my biggest piece when we're building, and we're building really quickly with a lot of new employees, is finding those pathways, finding those people, and training accordingly. And then very candidly trying to work with the league to make sure that the issues that we may be seeing that we think there's an opportunity for growth, that we're communicating effectively with our ownership group and other ownership groups to bring that to the forefront for potential growth and change there. I don't know if...
Yeah. I don't think there's a correct answer to communication. I think it's just an ongoing learning process. So for me, I was an assistant coach. I never knew, being a head coach, you have to talk to everybody. I had no idea. But luckily, Steve Kerr actually just told me, you have to be a great communicator, Natalie, and you have to be kind. And I think that was the best advice, is, just understand, everybody's voice is important, no matter where they end up in, the rankings or positions. So just as much as you can, give people your time, be able to communicate on all different levels and just have an open ear to everyone. I think it's the best. But there's no right answer. I think you just have to work extremely hard at it, and we do a lot of wine drinking together on all sides.
I mean, I wasn't sure of that.
Yeah. You want your team,
it's true.
But no, I think having good, having fun too outside of the office, I think is very important. We did that early too.
It is. And I think in a good way, everyone internally, no matter what their role, elevated or not, has opinions about our business because they care about it, and it's fun to have opinions about your business. Staying really close on that though, and figuring out which opinions to listen to is an art form at many different times, because a lot are valuable, and actually you get really smart people that you want to care about your business, that you can take advice from, but you can't listen to everything, right? You eventually have to be able to take in what you can and then drive the business forward.
Yeah. See, she's ahead of me on the communication.
Congratulations to your incredible success. But even though there's a lot of momentum in women's sports, WNBA, women's soccer, there continues to be a huge pay disparity between men's and women's sports, which could not be justified by the differences in market sizes. So what needs to happen to change that?
Business, money, investment. Right. I think when you look at what's working here and to fix pay equity, it's building business around it. And what you're seeing happen in the case studies that are working, when you look at the WNBA, for instance, is a mixture of all the stakeholders actually taking part in that. You're seeing media take part in that, right? So media is investing, being rewarded for that, seeing the outcomes of that, not just in the traditional media production, which was lacking, right? But in putting it in the right timestamps, telling the feature stories, adding more around what that looks like. You're seeing it from a team perspective. You're seeing ownership groups come in, invest in infrastructure and invest in staffing, right? I think one of the things that happened often was you'd hire 5 people and wonder why the results weren't there, instead of actually hiring into revenue accordingly for the results of the business that you're looking to achieve. And now that you're seeing that unlocked and seeing the results that are there from a business perspective, that's what you're seeing drive things like expansion fees, et cetera. But what's really driving it all is consumers. And consumers are rewarding everyone for building it the right way. And that's really what's going to make it unstoppable. Like when you talk to these younger audiences, you know, and you look to the 15 to 30-year-old that's pouring into women's sports and really acting with their dollars and with their time, you know, they're watching the full duration of WNBA games. They're not just looking at clips. Other leagues are really having to look into what that consumption looks like, you know, in different capacities. Women's sports is starting to progress in different ways and have some different strengths that I think are surprising to others. And obviously brands are taking note of that and so forth. So the way to get to pay equity is to build good business, but there's a lot of different stakeholders that have to get there that will drive investment into it and get those key results.
Yeah, and we are we're over time. This has been amazing. I think we could go.
Is there one more?
Let's say one question.
Okay, one quick question. Let's do it.
All right. So a little bit of history. Fred Neely, who first going up the Warriors, drafted the first woman in 1969 to East Law. To the Warriors that started the first WNBA team, which was the Warriors in 1969 to 1971.
My mom was the point guard for that team. So I've been a Warriors season ticket holder for 30 years. So, and you guys honored my mom doing Women's Month 4 years ago, her in East Law. She was a point guard. So I'm going to say what she would say. Why are we not being more intentional in advertising to women to get women to fill the seats? And how we go out to our communities to make sure, again, it's business, so it's all about butts in the seats, to get more women and young girls focused on basketball.
Is that for the Valkyries? Or
Yes.
yeah?
Well, basketball in general, but specifically for you guys in the role.
I mean, candidly, I think we are. So our audience is 50-50 men and women. Like, I think for me, that to me is an incredible testament to exactly what you're looking for in a brand, right? When you look at most men's sports, you usually see at best about a 70-30, 70% men, 30% women. When you're looking at the Valkyries, when you're seeing 50% women, 50% men, that to me showcases that our opportunity truly is right now to just grow that audience that is everyone. Like when we launched our brand in May of last year, in a matter of 4 months, we sold merchandise in all 50 states and 70 countries. The world is watching everything that we're building. We certainly think about often pathways specifically for young girls and what this experience feels like for women of all ages. You know, we hear from women like your mom in the privilege that we have to represent a brand like this, to work for an ownership group like this, to be funded like this. We feel that every single day and think about it every single day. When you look at our staff, that's representative of that. When you look at, you know, our game day experience, that's going to be representative of that. You know, things that we do are going to be reflective of the communities of our athletes on the court, which are women, right? So it's important that we're reaching women, but it's also important that we're not building a product that's simply a women's product for women. We are building a product that is for everyone. We want everyone to be following us, just like the world follows Steph Curry, right? Like the Valkyries are a product for everybody, and that's how we are really going to find our strength.
Great. I'm going to carry that on to my mom.
Great.
I love that. Learned a little history. What a great way to wrap this up. I do want to thank Ascend, Michelle, Deloitte, and all the other sponsors for bringing us together today. Natalie, Jess, thank you for your insights, your leadership. You know, I know that this is such a busy time for you all, so to spend the better part of an hour with all of us here means a lot. And I think I speak for everyone in this room for how excited we are for this inaugural season and what's to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to API Futures, presented by Ascend, where we empower global leaders of tomorrow.
Subscribe to API Futures on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple.